Welcome to Authors at Drucker. I'm Dave Specht, Director of the Global Family Business Institute at the Drucker School of Management. At the Drucker School, we aspire to become the global meeting place for the world's most influential business-owning families. Today's conversation represents further progress of that objective. Authors at Drucker is an interview series where we feature top authors that write about issues impacting business-owning families. Authors at Drucker is made possible from the generous sponsorship from the James E. Hughes Jr. Foundation. The foundation is dedicated to advancing the study of family governance and generational well-being. We at the Drucker School feel very aligned and very grateful to Jay and his foundation. On the last Authors at Drucker, we featured a book called Our Biggest Fight, Reclaiming Liberty, Humanity, Dignity in the Digital Age. It was a fascinating conversation for me, and if you missed it, I would encourage you to check it out on our YouTube channel or on our website. Before we begin, I wanted to just announce a couple of other things that I'm excited about here at the Drucker School. The first is our certificate program in advising family enterprises. This is a program that is made up of 6 modules that really is designed for advisors to business-owning families that want to get better at kind of living at the intersection of the financial and non-financial issues that families face. We partner with institutions to train groups of advisors. If you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk. The other one is our Generational Wealth Masterclass content. I worked with Jay Hughes to record this content, and so far we've used it in different ways. We've used it in Africa and my trip to Uganda in preparation for that. We'll be using it in preparation for my trip to Uruguay and Brazil as well. If you're interested in learning more about the Generational Wealth Masterclass content, again, feel free to reach out to me. So today's conversation will be about Small Giants. This is not a new book, but it's a classic. And I wanted to bring it to this audience because I think it's a really important one, specifically for family businesses and for advisors to family businesses. So today my guests are Burlingham and Paul Spiegelman. Bo is the author of Small Giants, Companies That Choose to Be Great Instead of Big. Bo served as editor-at-large of Inc. magazine for 7 years and has written several other books as well. Bo is joined today by Paul Spiegelman. Paul is co-founder of the Small Giants community. He's also the former chief culture officer of Stericycle and the founder of Barrel Health and the Barrel Institute. Paul is also a best-selling author and has been honored with the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. Bo and Paul, welcome to Authors at Drucker. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's good to be
Thank
here.
you, Dave.
Bo, I wanted to start with you. The first edition of Small Giants was published in 2006. This has kind of become a classic book. I've heard from many of my business professors that I should read it, and over the years, and then other colleagues as well. And I've read it a couple times, but I reread it this weekend, and I'm glad that I did. I read the 10th anniversary copy and really enjoyed it. I wanted to see if you could, maybe not everyone on this call has read the book yet. I wanted to see if you would take us back and talk about just your curiosity and how this project came to be.
Well, it actually started with an article that I had written in Inc. magazine about Zingerman's community of businesses. Zingerman's was a company that was started as a delicatessen in 1982, and within 10 years, it was their goal was to have a great and unique delicatessen that was not, the copy of any of the great other delicatessens around the world, but to have something that is really unique. And they had achieved that by 1992, and they had the opportunity at that point to grow exponentially. They had a lot of people who were counting on them or coming to them, asking them to open Zingerman's delicatessen in their committees all around the country. And R. and Paul, who were the founders of Ari Weinzweig and Paul Saginaw, who were the founders of Zingerman's, had that opportunity, and frankly, they could have raised the money that was that would be necessary in order to set up their own Zingermans around the country, but they decided that wasn't what they wanted to do. When they originally started the delicatessen, they wanted it to be great and unique. And when you start copying something that's not unique by definition, and oftentimes it's not very good, let alone great. So they decided they should they should have a different approach. They felt they needed to grow. That they didn't want to stagnate at their current level, but they had to figure out how they were going to do it. And they came up with a plan, which they issued in 1994, called Zingerman's 2009, and it was basically their view of what the company would become 15 years in the future. And instead of being just a delicatessen, it would be a whole community of businesses. They would all be food related. They would all be in the Ann Arbor area. That would each aspire to be great and unique in its own right. That I wrote an article about them and about the decision that they had made, and we published it in Inc. magazine under the cover line, "The Coolest Small Company in America." And one of the people who saw that was a publisher, a book publisher, and he contacted me and asked if there wasn't a book in this article. And I thought there might be a book for R. Weinzweig or Paul Saginaw, but I didn't see how there was a book for me. And he said, no. He wasn't talking about a book about Zingerman's. He was talking about companies that had the opportunity to grow a lot bigger and become a bigger company, a national company, but it chosen not to because they had other goals they considered more significant, and that they were going to pursue those goals. And I had been at Inc. for about 25 years at that point, and I frankly didn't know the answer to that question. I thought it was a good question, but I had no idea whether or not there were other companies that had that choice and had made that choice. And so I decided to go out and look and see if I could find any others. And I asked everybody I knew to what I was trying to do, and most people looked at me and they didn't know what what I was talking about. But there were some people who thought who said, "Oh, you should talk to this or that company," and pretty soon what I discovered was that there were a lot more of these companies than I ever imagined, and that they were in every part of the country, and that they were in every industry, and that they were just the companies that were considered the best companies in their niche, whatever their business was, but that had the opportunity to grow a lot faster and get a lot bigger, but they chose it not to because they had other goals they considered more important. And I wound up choosing, 13 of these companies to really look at the at this phenomenon, and that was the book that I wrote, Companies That Choose to Be Great Instead of Big. Now, I should say that I had a lot of fun writing that book. I visited all the companies. I talked to all the people. I thought they were great and inspiring and so forth. But after the book came out, I began to, I wanted to contact all the companies, make sure that they'd seen the book and, hear what any feedback that they'd gotten as a result of it. And one of the companies that I wanted to talk to was Rail Precision Manufacturing, which was a company that makes, it makes lots of products now, but at the time it was mainly known for its laptop hinges. When you have a laptop, you raise the top of the laptop, it doesn't fall right down. It comes down slowly. That's because of something called a constant torque hinge. And Rail had pioneered that particular technology, and it was very popular. It was used basically in all laptops that were being produced, and it had a great culture, and I suppose that I was mainly interested in the culture that they had created around this, and among other things, they had two CEOs, and I thought that was interesting, so I wrote about that in the book, and I decided to call one of the CEOs to find out what feedback he'd gotten about what I'd written, and I couldn't reach him, and I sent an email, and eventually I got an email in response that urged me to contact that person at what was obviously a personal email address, and I didn't understand what had happened, and I contacted the other CEO, who told me that there had been a big change at the company, that the founders had left the board, and the other people who were on the board had brought in a new CEO and had wanted the the co-CEOs. One of them was moving on to the board, and the other one was going to take a subservient role, and it was a big problem. That basically they were there was a lot of there's a lot of disaffection among the employees, and
that sounds like that's one of the big challenges of writing something like this. I mean, obviously the level of research that you had to do, the travel, the learning the stories, and then guess what? Businesses change, people make decisions. That's natural,
right.
that would happen. Paul, I wanted to ask you, because you're building the community, this the allure of growth. I mean, it sounds like every entrepreneur, I think, struggles with it. If there's an opportunity to grow the business, the natural thing that comes out of your mouth is, yes, of course, let's grow, right? Grow. But what are the things that you're seeing as kind of decision points for companies that choose to grow, and the ways that they grow? Because obviously everyone needs to grow, but what are you seeing in your community?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And even in Small Giants, there's a misperception sometimes from people that read it that small giants don't want to grow. They just want to remain small. And that's not true. We all want to grow. We all want to make money. We all want to be successful, grow our companies, but we want to do it a certain way. And rather than just grow for the sake of growth, we want to grow by creating intimate cultures by focusing on people foremost as the biggest stakeholder in our businesses, because we focus on our people, that's going to lead to customer loyalty, which will help drive profit into our business. We want to be very involved in our local communities. We want to be very passionate about the work that we're doing. And that's why I was so inspired, just like anybody on the call who may have read Small Giants just said, I want to be like those people. I want to be like those leaders, those companies who have done it a certain way. And the reality is you can do well and do good at the same time. And so this idea of building a people-focused business is now maybe a little bit more in vogue. And maybe when Bo wrote it, it was revolutionary. But we're coming to see that these kind of business practices are becoming much more acceptable and almost necessary in order for businesses to grow. So we all want to grow, but we have to make these decisions along the way. How do we want to grow? Who are the stakeholders that are most important in our businesses?
Yeah, it seems that every entrepreneur is walking a tightrope between growth and how are you gonna finance that growth, and then also how's that gonna impact the culture, and can the culture grow as fast as maybe a product sale? Bo, I was really interested in Anchor Brewing, and some of the tough decisions that Fritz Maytag made in terms of his choice to reject some growth that could have been possible. Would you mind kind of telling us a little bit about Anchor Brewing and that story?
Well, speaking about companies that change, I mean, as I mentioned in the 10th anniversary edition, which is the edition that people should read, has a crucial chapter in it, and there's two important chapters. One is an update on the different companies, and the other is a company called Why Small Giants Fail. Well, in the Fritz Maytag, nobody lives forever, and Fritz Maytag got to a point where he realized he had to figure out something about what was going to happen with the company after he left, and he found two people who understood the spirit of Anchor Brewing and who seemed like they wanted to buy Anchor Brewing in order to continue the kind of company that Fritz had built with Anchor Brewing, and he eventually he did sell to them, and he moved on. He actually had a wine business in addition, and he lived, it was near where he lived, and he continued to focus on that. But the guys who he bought the company from, or who bought the company from him, they innovated. They brought different types of beer. They were reasonably successful, but time moves along and people change, and they got to a point where they didn't want to keep doing it any longer, and so they looked for another buyer, and they found a Japanese buyer. One of the Japanese beer manufacturers was interested in buying into the craft brewing market in the United States, and they bought Anchor Brewing, and lo and behold, that worked for a while, and then Anchor Brewing, and then it no longer met their needs, and so they were basically going to close it. And I don't know the latest word on it, but the point is that things happen. time doesn't stop, and people don't stop growing and changing as a result of what they do with their company. And that's true of all the small giants. As Paul said, Paul mentioned all of the companies that are in small giants were committed to growing, and in one way or another, and had different experiences, and that happens. But there's still an ideal that a lot of companies strive towards, and that's really where Paul comes in, because after the book came out, Paul should tell the story, but we met because Paul asked me to write a foreword for his book that he was going to write, because he had a company that would frankly, if I had known about it earlier, I would have included it in the book. It was a company called Barrel. It was basically a telephone answering service and advisory, but unlike any that I had seen before. And it was a wonderful company. And he written a book about it and about his experience with it. And he asked me if I would write the foreword to it. Well, one thing led to another, and I agreed that I would do that. And we became friends. When Small Giants came out, a lot of people were telling me, gee, there are a lot of people who read the book and who identify with it, but identify with the other companies in it, but they have no way of reaching each other. There's no way of knowing each other. And why don't you start a business? There's a great business opportunity here. And I said, yes, but I'm a journalist. I'm not an entrepreneur. And this requires somebody who knows how to build a business, and it's not me. It's someone who has the financial resources to be able to do it. And I say, that's not me. And one of the people who was on my case about this was Paul Spiegelman. And Paul and I met for dinner in Dallas. So I happened to be in Dallas, and we had dinner, and Paul was on my case about this. And I said, listen, this is not something that's right for me. I'm a journalist. I get bored easily, and I'm not sure I would be a very good entrepreneur. And I said, but if you want to do it, I'm willing to support you 100%. But you have to take the responsibility for doing it. And Paul agreed to go forward with it. He should tell the story.
Bo, I wanted to just say, one thing that I came away with from this book, and Paul, I'll go to you, but is a level of empathy, for each of these entrepreneurs as they kind of walk the tightrope between, building a company that they're really proud of, that they wake up with energy for, attracting people that they want to work with, that they can enthusiastically get to buy into their vision. And then at some point, whether it be health or age or whatever, having to make really difficult decisions, or just financially. Paul, as you think about the small giants that you're working with, I imagine that chasm, that lack of empathy that maybe others have for them, maybe that gap is filled with a community. Or tell me a little bit about that. It's probably lonely.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, we all know being a leader can be lonely, and my reaching out to Bo and bugging him to build a community was very selfish, because I happen to be generally reserved. I'm not a networker, but if I could find people that resonated with me in terms of our philosophies around business and life, that's who I wanted to hang out with, and I wanted to meet people like that. And the ask of Bo is to say, look, there's many other companies like me that resonated with this message. I'd like to learn from them. I'd like to grow with them. We need to share these principles. And that's what we have found, is that as people are attracted to the community, they want to be with like-minded, or what we call like-hearted people that resonate with these messages, because there's many people over the years, and we started it in 2010, I think, so 15 years ago, who have said along the way, this all makes sense, but I don't know how to do it. How do I practically do it on a day-to-day basis? And like Bo and I talk about often, it's we're really giving them practical tips to help them engage with their team and bring others along that may not have had the same experiences. I may have been wired this way, this sort of empathy. I mean, I started my core business with my two brothers, and we had never been in business before, never knew how to start a business, didn't get an MBA, started a very organically bootstrap business. And after our first 10 or 15 people, our employees would tell us that this was a unique place that they were working now. And we would ask them why. And then we learned that what we were doing was unique. And it all came from the values that we had, that our parents gave us. You know, my dad said, always be kind, never burn a bridge, treat people with respect. Come to find out, many people had experiences that were opposite of that. And so we leaned into that empathy of what we say is to truly care about our people and the totality of their lives, and create an environment in which they're going to thrive on a day-to-day basis. Because I feel that this idea of work-life balance is very blurred. It's just life. And especially now, we're kind of all connected all the time. And if we can create those kind of environments, it's going to make people really productive. It's going to make them loyal. It's going to make them fulfilled. And that's how we want to grow. And so when we find these other like-minded people, the community becomes, well, what did you do? How did you do? We're not making anything up. There's nothing proprietary about what we do, but how to handle the relationships that we have with our stakeholders and the businesses is really the power and the glue that holds the community together.
You know,
you're in conversations and bringing them together so they can learn from each other, which is a beautiful thing. Did you have something, Bo?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of having an entrepreneur build this community, because, you know, it was one thing to have people who wanted to be together and wanted to learn from each other, but ultimately, in order to be self-sustaining, in order for the community to go on, it has to be able to it has to have the financial capability of covering its costs and paying its creditors and so forth, and
has to act like a small giant.
Like a small giant. And Paul understood that, and he in developing, you know, he hired some great people, particularly Hamza Daher, to be the general manager of the community. But he also he realized the importance of establishing a funding source. Otherwise, it would depend on, you know, his donating money ad infinitum, and everybody runs out of money sooner or later. But he realized that there had to be something that this community supplied to its to other small giants, or, you know, to other members, that they're willing to pay for, and that he found what that was. I mean, you know, the initial thought was, well, we'll have members, and we'll get members to pay. But, you know, when you look at the CEOs of companies, the one thing that they don't have is time. It's their most precious commodity, and they don't have the time to spend on this kind of thing. But on the other hand, they do have other people within their organization whom they want to train to be the future leaders of their organization. And Paul and Hamza recognized that and realized that they could establish a what they call the Small Giants Leadership Academy, and that basically companies send their future leaders to the academy to go through a course that really, really prepares them for leadership in the small giants companies, and they're willing to pay for that. I mean, I know one of the leaders of these companies, and I asked him, he's a member of the Small Giants community, and I asked him why he keeps sending people to the Leadership Academy, and he said to me, because they tell me, because once I send the people, they come back, they tell me it was worthwhile, that they learned from it, and that what they got from it has had a positive and tangible impact on their ability within our company. And
Bo, can I jump in real quick? So
sure.
what you're saying is, earlier in our call before we jumped on, we talked a little bit about, some of the challenges that these small giants face. And Paul, I want to go back to you on this again, specifically with the community that's being built. One of the key challenges it seems that every small giant faces is, how do you scale culture, and how do you create process to enable the feeling of who they want to be as a company, to continue to be there as the number of bodies, as the number of people that join them grows. Can you talk to us a little bit about scaling culture?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dave, and something that we're all still trying to figure out. But what I think it comes down to is the idea that culture isn't just this vibe that you feel when you walk in the door. That's part of it, but it needs to be respected like any other process in the business, because it's really easy when we're a small business and we have 10, 20, 30 people, everybody knows everybody, and you just build a family sort of atmosphere to the business. But as we start to grow, as everybody knows, there's a necessity to build more structure and build processes into all aspects of the business. Culture is no different. And so we need to figure out a way to institutionalize those processes. And when we do that, like caring about the what's going on in the personal lives of our employees, or recognizing events or life events that are happening, or celebrating traditions or holidays in a certain way, we have to maintain those. It's about consistency. And so one thing that we can do as leaders that could be very disingenuous is the idea that we say we're a small giant, but we don't really act like it, or we just assign it to someone as opposed to leading by example as the leader. So if we sort of deputize our team members, there's always people passionate about this in any size business, to say, help me institutionalize this by putting processes in place. We can scale it as we grow. And there's certainly stories of large companies, public companies, that have done that. It's difficult. You look at a Southwest Airlines or some of these that have been able to do that over a number of years. But the smaller companies too really struggle with this, and there's some inflection point where they realize that the effectiveness of the culture is being diluted, or maybe they're focusing too much on growth for a period of time. And so we have to slow down, put the processes in place, honor those processes, and be consistent.
So thank you. So one of the focal points that I saw as well in Small Giants is the attention to employees and their own development, and then also to the customer. Again, this is a tightrope between kind of feeling like family and maybe being family and operating a profitable business. I wanted to see if you would talk about that as well, um, Paul. If you could start, and then Bo maybe with a story, just about that tightrope of being employee focused, and also having enough focus on profitability that it can go forward, that it still has gas in the tank to move forward.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we have to realize as small giants, it doesn't mean we don't make tough decisions, right? It's if we just treat everybody like a family and we allow people that maybe can't scale with the business or don't belong to remain, or we allow someone with bad attitude to remain, it's going to bring everybody down. And so small giants will make the tough decisions and do it in a compassionate way to grow their company. We talk a lot about that in the community. What's the process of making the tough decision to let someone go, to have a tough or difficult conversation along the way. And so that's part of being a small giant, is honoring the difficult parts of the job along the way as well, and realizing it's not just about everybody having fun or buying beer on a Friday afternoon. But I came to believe, Dave, that everybody really wants the same thing in a company, no matter the size. And even when I sold Barrel Health to a public company, and I became chief culture officer of that company for several years, they had 200,000 employees. I found the same thing. People want to feel like that they're connected to the purpose of the business. They want to feel like that they're being valued and appreciated for the work that they're doing, and they want some opportunity to learn and grow. And that transcends industry and size, I have found. Now, of course, it's much more difficult to right the ship or move a very large organization that's not used to doing business that way. But I think all people that work within those companies generally want the same thing.
One of the things I noticed, Bo, in the book is it seems like the small giants maybe err on the side of transparency with employees and letting them know how the business is performing, so that when there is a tough decision to be made, it's not very surprising to the companies. But what would you say about
Well,
that
I mean,
transparency?
to talk about the tough decisions that people make, it helps to look at a specific example. I mean, I mentioned before rail precision manufacturing that makes they virtually dominated. They dominated the market in terms of supplying these laptop hinges to makers of laptops, and which were for a while at first American or Japanese companies. Then the manufacture of those businesses was moved to Asia, to low income places, and to low wage places, and suddenly they found themselves competing not against other American or Japanese companies, but against local Chinese or Korean or whatever companies that were making them at a fraction of the cost, and able to save the manufacturers a considerable amount of money. And they had a choice to make. They were afraid that were they going to in fact compete on price against these other foreign suppliers, or were they, they were afraid that if they did, they would lose the business if they didn't reduce their cost. But at the same time, they were afraid that they would not have the cash flow necessary to maintain some of the factories that they had built within the States, and they would be forced to lay people off. Well, they didn't want to lay people off. I mean, it was the last thing that they wanted to do, but they had no choice but to meet the financial demands of the companies that they were supplying the laptop hinges to. Well, the result was that ultimately they were they refused to lay people off, and the result was that they were losing money. I mean, when I went to visit them the second time, after I had visited them for the book, when I went to visit them the second time, they were losing money on every single product that they make. Well, you can't stay in business very long if you lose money on every product that you make. And so, they had to make a decision about what to do. And one of the questions was, are they going to lay people off in order to cut their costs? Well, talk about difficult decisions that people have to make. That is a very difficult decision, and needless to say, it had a huge impact on the culture. I mean, the people had said, "This goes against our culture to lay people off. We shouldn't have to do this." And the fact is, they didn't have any choice. I mean, they would go out of business if they didn't. Well, eventually, they resisted that, and they brought in a new CEO, actually somebody who had been there, but who understood what the problem was. And in fact, the first week that he took his new job, he received a visit from somebody from the bank who said, if you don't change things very fast, we're going to have to call our loan. And that would basically
That's not a great visit. That's not a great visit the first week on the job.
No. And he said, well, all I can do is, I understand what you're saying, and all I can do is tell you what my plan is. And evidently he gave a very good explanation of what his plan was. His plan was eventually that he was going to reduce his labor costs, but that he was going to move out of the laptop hinge business. The company that had the product that had fueled their success, that had made them successful in the first place, was killing them.
Yeah, it's a tough pivot for sure.
And so he realized that they had to, but they couldn't do it all at once, because they needed the cash flow that came from the laptop hinges in order to pay people, in order to stay in business. So they had to really change their product mix completely, and they had to figure out how to do that. It took about a year to do that.
Bo, that leads me to these pivots. So you're talking about a really difficult choice they had to make to basically let go of the product that created the success that they had. But one of the other things that is discussed in the book, and Paul, I'd love to get your feedback on this and how companies are doing it today and how these entrepreneurs are doing it. The simultaneous transition of management and ownership is talked about in the book, and I'm curious what small giants are doing to approach these really technical, but also really emotional transitions. So again, the simultaneous transition of ownership and also management. Paul, what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, I think that's something that small giants are very focused on. Like folks said, our leadership academy is about building the bench. It's about training those next generation leaders, whether the next generation takes over the ownership of the business or not. I would say for the most part, small giants companies are less interested in a private equity sale or even a strategic sale. It doesn't mean it may not happen, but they're mostly focused on building companies for the long term. There's many that want to build 100-year companies. But we have a number of them that have become ESOPs or have in the newest form of employee ownership is a perpetual purpose trust. And so we have a number of our companies that are exploring ways to transition owners, mostly within their own employee base in some respect. And so there's a long journey, and Bo wrote an incredible book called Finish Big that focuses on people that have transitioned out of their business, because the reality is we're all going to do that. But what's sort of the good and bad of the ugly? And a lot of that has to do with the extent to which we plan and prepare in advance and think about what it will be like, because we will all eventually transition out. And the primary thing that I focused on in my company, and we focus on with these others, is it's about the team. It's about the team that is going to continue and create, so that not only do you have a legacy, but that these practices will remain for the long term. So it's a really important topic that all of Small Giants and any business owner, regardless of Small Giants, should be thinking about.
Well, one of the things that's tricky about that, though, Paul, is, with Small Giants, it's the control factor that's allowed them to make choices, to make changes, to be able to affect culture. And with transition comes a loss of control. You have to naturally let go of control so that continuity has a chance. And that's where I feel like it's so emotionally charged. But what did you have? Sorry.
Well, I mean, Paul mentioned that I've written subsequently another book called Finish Big, which is about the inevitable fact that everybody leaves their business at some point. They don't, they face this decision about ownership and leadership. Yeah. Everybody has to do that. And one thing that I tried very hard to do was to find companies that had managed to maintain their mojo, whatever it is that makes the company special to begin with. It's the business equivalent of charisma. But in other words, all these companies that all the Small Giants have this mojo, and how do you maintain it through not just one, but two transitions of ownership? I mean, conceivably, you can find one person, and you can maintain it through one transition of ownership. But how do you maintain it through two transitions, and how does that happen? And I came to the conclusion, and I looked very hard, for businesses that had successfully managed this transition from of leadership and ownership. And in the end, I decided that there were only two ways. Number one was family businesses, and number two was employee-owned businesses. And the reason was that I concluded was that somebody has to protect whatever it is that creates that mojo that the company has. And either it's the family or it's the employees. And that you have to have one or the other in order to maintain the business. I mean, Paul notes that some of these companies want businesses to last for 100 years. Well, nobody lives for 130 years or whatever it is. Is going to be that transition. And, either it's going to be through employee ownership or it's going to be through family ownership.
Perfect. I love that. So I don't want to take all of your time. I want to open it up for the audience. If you have questions, please go ahead and submit those into the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand and I will call on you if you want to talk anything about small giant community. Maybe in the chat you can also talk about what is your mojo. I'm of the belief, I used to say that there needed to be a shared dream. And Bo and Paul, I'm not sure I believe in the shared dream anymore. I think that everyone has to have a dream, and the dream can be connected to what the previous generation had a dream about. But ultimately, that mojo, I'm guessing, needs to evolve. I don't know that you can have the same mojo for 100 years. It's going to have new energy infused, new ideas, new champions. And I do think it is a challenge for, I would say, for successors to move away from products, to move away from certain services that did represent the mojo of a founder. I'll give you one quick story, and then we'll get to a couple of questions. One is a aviation maintenance company, and they suddenly had aviation sales company, and suddenly the founder passed away. And the rising generation, guess what? They weren't good at sales. So they completely reinvented the business and became an aviation maintenance company because that's what they were good at. So did they lose their mojo? I don't know. I think their mojo got reinvented, and that company is now almost 80 years old. So I don't know if there's any thoughts you have on mojo reinvention.
Let me just add to that. The mojo is basically about relationships. It's about the relationships that people have, that a company has with all the people it comes in contact with. It has clearly its employees. Is the business a place where people want to work? That people actually compete in order to have a job at that place. That the customers want to buy from. That they appreciate the product or the service, and it's not that product or service has something that customers value over and above what they could get from somebody else, from some other supplier. It's about the community. It's about their neighbors in the community, and it's about the relationship that the business has to people in the community. So if you want to have mojo, basically what you want to have is you want people to want to have a relationship with a company, to want to be close to the company. And the question that people can ask themselves is that the case with my company? Do people want to work here? Do customers want to buy from us? Somebody, Alan Sugarman, mentioned that Zingerman's was a great place and that he frequently visited all of their businesses. Well, that has to do with their mojo. The relationship that they had with the people who came in and bought from them. The question that you need to ask yourself is that true of my business? Is that true of do people love what I do, love the way that I do it, and want to be part of it, want to be close to it? And if you have people who feel, if people generally, whether it's employees, whether it's people who look for jobs at your business, or customers who decide whether or not to buy from your businesses, or people generally who want to be part of your businesses, then you have mojo.
Yeah. Thank you, Bo. I want to give just a minute or so. Please feel free to raise your virtual hand if you have a question for Bo or Paul or I. We have just a couple minutes left. We'd love to include your voice in the call. Any questions? Well, as we're coming to a close here, I just hope that all of you that listen here can sense the level of empathy that there is for an entrepreneur that has so many different stakeholders that they're serving. They're serving themselves and their own vision. They're taking care of a family that has needs, needs for not only financial resources, but their time and their attention and their energy. These small giants have communities surrounding them. When you talk about the company in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or you talk about Buffalo, New York, and the company that was built there, and the dependency that many of these communities have on entrepreneurs, their vision, the companies that they build. I hope that you'll come away with a sense of a community, that there is a place where people have empathy for you. We know that you have big, difficult decisions to make that will impact your business, that will impact your family, that will impact your community. And my hope is that you'll embrace some of the principles of Small Giants. Reach out to Paul if you want to learn more about, learning about that community or being connected with that community. Bo, I'm really appreciative of you writing the book and of also writing the 10-year anniversary book and giving us a feel for where these companies have gone. I do think that there is an unfair thing that happens with family-owned companies, is that we feel like they have failed if they ever sell or if they ever stop doing what they did. And I want to dispel that myth. That is, dreams change, dreams evolve, people age, people transition. And I want to remove some of the guilt that business owners feel as they make these transitions. I'm not sure how to do it, but having conversations like these, I think, is a small step in that direction.
Let me just add one thing. If you are interested in this, if you I'm talking directly to the listeners here, that if you want to connect more with this whole phenomenon, I would suggest that you go to the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org, and that really is the way to establish a contact and to begin to benefit from the resources that the Small Giants community makes to various customers. Please don't hesitate. We have a summit once a year, and the next summit is in 2025, and I think it's April or May of 2025. I should know the exact dates, but please, I would encourage you to come to our, if you're interested in this. You're obviously interested enough to tune into the show.
No reason to go it alone. There's no reason to go it alone.
You could join us at the summit next year. It's in Detroit, and it's always a great event. I enjoy going to it myself, and I would encourage you to join us there.
Well, thank you, Bo, and thank you, Paul, and thank you to all of you that have invested your most precious resource with us, your time. Next month on Authors at Drucker, I'll be interviewing Sudev Sheth about his book, Bankrolling Empire, Family Fortunes and Political Transformation in Mughal India. So until next time, thanks again for joining us on Authors at Drucker. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.